Welcome back, BookTalk enthusiasts, to another episode of Dragons and Spaceships, your go-to show for all things fantasy, sci-fi, and everything in between that's setting BookTalk on fire. I'm your host, Brandi, and today we are diving into a YA fantasy debut that has been exploding in popularity, Lauren Roberts' Powerless. If you are a fan of deadly competitions, sharp-witted heroines, and enemies to lovers tension, then you are in for a treat. But before we dive headfirst into deadly trials and forbidden romance, let's take a quick detour to see what's buzzing on BookTalk this week. Today's trending pick is The House of Monstrous Women by Daphne Fama. It kicks off in 1986 Philippines. Josephine, orphaned after her father's political downfall, gets this strange invite from Iliya, her childhood friend rumored to be a witch. The invite leads to a labyrinth house, weird whispers, dangerous games, and one rule: survive. So, if you're craving gothic horror, folk witch whispers, and houses that feel alive, House of Monstrous Women might be your next obsession, especially with spooky season around the corner. All right, now let's shift from haunted houses to deadly arenas, from whispered curses to public executions. Welcome to the brutal kingdom of Iliya and our featured book, Powerless. Okay, let's break it down because Powerless isn't just a fantasy competition story. It's packed with tension, rebellion, and all of the tropes BookTalk readers are absolutely devouring. We will start with the world of Iliya. This kingdom is divided into two very distinct classes. At the top, you have the wielders, people born with magical abilities. Some can heal, some control elements, some are physically stronger or faster than any ordinary human. They're celebrated, trained, and ultimately elevated above everyone else. At the very bottom are the ordinaries, those born without power. In Iliya, that means you're less than nothing. The king's rule is merciless. Ordinaries are considered weak, expendable, and often eliminated from society. This cruel hierarchy isn't just background, it's what shapes every decision our main characters make. But now let's talk about our heroine, Paedyn Gray. Payden is an ordinary, but she's been surviving by pretending to be a psychic. She lives in the shadows of Loot Alley, the roughest part of Iliya. And she's sharp, resourceful, and deeply protective of her own survival. What makes her compelling is that she's not fearless. She feels the danger. She knows she's outmatched, and yet she never backs down. Before he was killed, taught her how to survive without power, how to rely on instinct, cunning, and wit. That legacy becomes her true weapon. In many ways, Powerless is Paedyn's journey to prove that she doesn't need magic to matter. Then we have Kai. Kai is the prince, the king's enforcer, and very much a product of his environment. Trained from childhood, he's strong, disciplined, and loyal to the brutal rules of the kingdom. But Kai is also conflicted. He's caught between being the ruthless heir his father wants and the man he actually wants to be. His relationship with Payden is one of the highlights of the novel. At first, he sees her as a liar, a risk, maybe even a threat. But as they're thrown together in the purging trials, he begins to realize that her lack of magic doesn't mean weakness. In fact, her resourcefulness and compassion set her apart from the wielders he spent his whole life protecting. And then there are the purging trials. These are the deadly centerpiece of the story, and they're as much political theater as they are competition. Think of them as part Hunger Games, part Gladiator. The trials are meant to prove the dominance of the wielders and weed out anyone who doesn't measure up. For Payden, being forced into them is a death sentence, unless she can bluff her way through every round, pretending her skills are actually psychic abilities. Each trial pushes her closer to exposure, and each one also peels back more about Kai, the kingdom, and the cracks in this oppressive system. But let's pause here for a moment to talk about themes. The most obvious theme is power and inequity. The entire society is built on the belief that magical power equals worth. Payden, simply by surviving, disrupts that narrative. She shows that intelligence, resilience, and heart can rival brute magical strength. Another theme is identity and deception. Payden wears the mask of a psychic to survive, but the real question is, when you spend your whole life pretending, how do you know who you really are? Her journey forces her to confront whether she can keep hiding or if it's time to embrace her true self, even if that truth is dangerous. Then there is oppression and resistance. The trials aren't just entertainment, they are propaganda, designed to keep the ordinaries in their place and remind wielders of their superiority. Payden's presence disrupts that carefully crafted system. The fact that she competes, survives, and refuses to be erased makes her a symbol of quiet rebellion. But let's not forget the romance. The enemies to lovers tension between Payden and Kai gives the story its emotional heartbeat. They challenge each other, frustrate each other, and push each other to see the world differently. Their romance isn't soft or easy, it's forged under fire with stakes that could destroy them both. And that's exactly why readers are obsessed. But now let's touch on symbols and motifs. Paedyn's dagger, a gift from her father, represents not just survival, but her inheritance of strength without magic. It's small compared to the wielder's powers, but in her hands, it's enough. Her father's ring is another symbol, a reminder of where she came from and the hidden resilience she carries. Even the phrase, "thank the plague," which characters use almost casually, serves as a motif, reminding us that this society has been shaped by catastrophe, one that cemented the divide between the powerful and the powerless. And of course, the trials themselves are a symbol. They're not just games, they are the kingdom's way of keeping its hierarchy intact. By surviving them, Payden doesn't just save her own life, she disrupts an entire system of control. But finally, let's talk about why this book resonates so strongly on BookTalk. It has the perfect blend of tropes readers love. We have enemies to lovers, found family moments within the contestants, hidden identity, deadly competition, a corrupt kingdom begging to be overthrown, and Lauren Roberts delivers it with fast pacing, sharp dialogue, and characters who feel both relatable and larger than life. By the end, you're left with big questions about what it means to be strong, who decides who matters, and how far someone will go to protect the people they love. And yes, it leaves you hungry for the next installment. But before we dock for the day, let's open the Sorcerer's Scrolls, our portal to the newest and most spellbinding releases. Today we are talking about Catabasis by R.F. Kwong. This book was just released on August 26, 2025. Here's what makes it worth adding to your magical reading pile. This story follows Alice Law, a graduate student in Cambridge who practices analytic magic. Her advisor, Professor Jacob Grimes, dies in a catastrophic magical experiment gone wrong. Driven by guilt and academic ambition, she needs his recommendation to advance. Alice makes the risky decision to descend, literally into hell, to recover his soul. But it's not a solo quest. She's forced to bring along Peter Murdoch, her academic rival. Their journey through the afterlife is full of moral puzzles, supernatural trials, logic paradoxes, resistance to memory-erasing waters, and confrontations with deities and magical scholars who have their own motives. It blends dark academia with fantasy and mythology. Themes of academic pressure, mentorship abuse, rivalry, guilt, and what it costs to chase credentials or recommendations when the stakes are higher than grades. The tone alternates between mind-bending philosophical magic and visceral, dangerous forces in the underworld. But here's some reasons why you might love it and who it's for. If you liked books like Babel by the same author, The Secret History, The Magicians, or something mythic like Dante's Inferno, then this one is for you. Also great if you love stories where academic life is just as haunted, if not more so, than any supernatural realm. So if you love stories where academia is just as haunted as the underworld itself, add Catabasis to your TBR. It just dropped on August 26th of this year. Go get it. Well, that wraps up today's episode of Dragons and Spaceships. Powerless is proof that sometimes the most dangerous people aren't the ones with magic, they're the ones who've learned how to fight without it. Have you read Powerless yet? What did you think of the trials, and where do you think Paedyn's journey will go next? But don't forget to comment or message your questions for a chance to be featured in next time we do the Q&A segment. Follow the show, share it with your book bestie, and as always, until next time, happy reading, stay curious, and may your TBR pile never stop growing.